Ewan owns 5/8 of a cat cafe. If he sells 2/3 of his share of the cafe for $45,000, how much was Ewan's share of the cafe worth? So this question is asking us how much Ewan's share was worth before he sold a portion of his portion off. So that means that our final dollar amount should be higher than $45,000. Before we can figure that out, we need to figure out how much of the cafe Ewan sold. Here you'll notice that it says 2/3 of his share, which we know to be 5/8. So we need to figure out what 2/3 of 5/8 is, or a fraction of a fraction. Let's start with that. 2/3 of 5/8 is a fraction of a fraction. Just like in our videos about finding a percentage of something, we are going to multiply. So 2/3 times 5/8. When you're multiplying fractions, you're multiplying the numerator by the numerator and then the denominator by the denominator. So that means that we've got 2 times 5, which is 10, and 3 times 8, which is 24. So Ewan sold 10/24 of his share. Now we can reduce this fraction to be in its lowest terms, so it's easiest to work with. Both 10 and 24 I know are even numbers, so I can divide each of them by 2. I need to, of course, keep my fraction equivalent, so I've got to divide them both by 2. So this gives us a lowest term fraction of 5/12. This means that 5/12 of Ewan's share was worth $45,000. Now we need to figure out what his whole share was worth. We can think about this the same way we tackled our percentage problems. 5/12 of something is 45,000. So using the same structure we used before, 45,000 divided by 5/12 will tell us that something. Before we continue with this calculation, let's take a little pause here. Pretend that instead for the example, half of Ewan's share was worth $45,000. How would you figure out how much his whole share was? Multiply by 2, right? So you took 45,000 divided by half and changed it to 45,000 times 2 over 1. Because really, every whole number is just a fraction of 1. You ended up using the reciprocal, or the inverse of half, to multiply and solve your problem. So this same concept will work for us with our current fraction of 5/12. Knowing that, let's get back to it. So 45,000 divided by 5/12 is the same as 45,000 times 12/5. We're going to multiply numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator. Don't forget, every whole number is technically a fraction out of 1, so you can imagine an invisible number 1 right under there. 45,000 times 12 is 540,000. 1 times 5 is 5. So we now have a fraction of 540,000 fifths. But as you remember, a fraction is also another representation of a division. So we can divide 540,000 by 5 to get 108,000. This means that Ewan's share of the cat cafe was worth $108,000.